We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14 here to preview and predict Tennessee's road trip to Lexington, Kentucky to face the Wildcats. You can catch that on ESPN 7:30 Central. Can't wait to see this one. Two teams coming off bitterly disappointing performances. Before we get into the analysis and the prediction, it is playoff time. The road to Vegas goes through San Francisco and Baltimore. BetOnline is your number one source for playoff football odds, stats, trends, and lines with everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props. Head to BetOnline today. Get updated on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, guys, for Tennessee, it's been the Dalton Connect show. And that finally ran out of gas this week in a pretty stunning upset by South Carolina at Food City, whatever they call it. Not arena.
It's the Food City Center, Chris.
That's Food City Center. Thank you. This will not be in the cafeteria. This will be in Rupp Arena, where hopes go to die traditionally. But Kentucky also in a little bit of an awkward spot, having blown a game, lost in overtime to what I think is a very talented Florida team. We've got some injuries. We got some uncertainty on both sides. And do we have a line? I think Ken Palm and Bart Torvik, Max, have this as about around a 1 to 2 point game, which is a little surprising. I would guess the line would be along the lines of a pick'em or maybe a 1 point Kentucky win. And oh, by the way, Kentucky, I think, has blown Tennessee's doors off the last two times the Vols have gone to Rupp.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be larger than a 2 point spread either way. I would probably say it's going to be a 1.5 spread to a pick'em. Basically a 50-50 coin flip in this game. 8:30 primetime game. Rupp's going to be rocking. It's going to be rocking. And we've seen this Tennessee team struggle on the road a little bit. They did beat Georgia, but they were on the ropes there. They were very on the ropes before they got Dalton connected. So they lost to Mississippi State. Rick Barnes said he wasn't really proud of the effort they had at Vanderbilt. So we've seen this team struggle on the road a little bit. And now they're gonna go into one of their most hostile territories of the season. But Kentucky, well, another thing is Kentucky hasn't lost back-to-back home games since 2021. So they're going on almost 3 years here of not losing back-to-back home games. So you got that trend going for Kentucky also. But look at the flip side, Kentucky's 0-2 without DJ Wagner. And I'm not sure if he's going to be available or not. Same with Justin Edwards. I looked this morning, watched the pressers, and there hasn't been. It's kind of an I don't know situation out of Kentucky. So that's going to be huge because DJ Wagner. We've seen how the guard defense suffers when he's not on the floor, and Chris, we were talking about this before the show. Reed Shepherd just played every minute. I'm not sure in this physical of a game he's going to be able to play every minute. And if he does play every minute, does that impact his defensive focus at all, if you want to put it that way? So I don't know if this is going to be the type of game for Big Z or Jordan Burks with how physical it's going to be. And so a short-handed team would really be tough in a game like this. But it's hard to peg if they're going to play or not. And then if you're looking at another area that Tennessee might be able to kind of exploit is, surprisingly, this has been a team that has done really well in the fast-paced games. Blew the doors off Alabama, blew the doors off Florida. But in the slower-paced game against Mississippi State, against South Carolina, you kind of slip up a little bit. And when it gets into that half-court versus half-court game, we've seen Tennessee kind of struggle. So that's not what this game's probably going to be. They like to get out and run. So I see both sides where they can kind of take advantage of each other. But I really think that, man, DJ Wagner's going to have to play in this one. What do you think, Blake?
I think this game's going to deliver. Average offensive possession length in SEC play. Kentucky's second, Tennessee's third.
Yeah.
Only 0.3 a second separates that. We all know Alabama's one. But yeah, these two teams are going to get up down the floor. I think it's going to be a game where, as always, I'm curious to see now how Kentucky adjusts to a team that's going to bump them defensively and keep bumping them because that's what the game plan is. If you're looking for the blueprint, South Carolina gave you the blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's that. And I told you, I would compare South Carolina to Tennessee in some ways. So if you're Tennessee, why are you not doing the same thing here, right? Like you're definitely going to try to do the exact same thing. And so if that's the case, can Kentucky handle the physicality? Because they could not in South Carolina. Can Kentucky limit the number of offensive lapses that they have? Because if you have, or excuse me, defensive lapses. Because if you have defensive lapses against the team offensively that has Dalton Connect on the floor, you're in trouble. So, yeah, to me, obviously you want to see how Tennessee rebounds from the South Carolina loss, because that was, like I said, the first game this season where Tennessee just felt like that's not the Tennessee team we've seen all season. So does that become a trend? You lose 2 games in a row here, and all of a sudden we start to completely change our expectations of Tennessee? Or as a very old team, are they able to regroup and bounce back and sort of understand that, like it or not, this game's going to be the opposite of the South Carolina game? And I think that's great for Tennessee. So, yeah, it's like the kryptonite, the South Carolina Gamecocks. This is the battle of it's like Tennessee and Kentucky are also the sons of Lamont Paris at this point. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. This game's always big, but I would have to look back, but I don't know how many matchups we've had between Tennessee and Kentucky where both teams are coming off a loss. I can't imagine there's been too many in recent years that's been the case.
Okay, I think we've spent a lot of time on pace and style, and I think those are really important things. And so that prompted me to kind of look at Kentucky this year, and had it played anybody like Tennessee, because there aren't a lot of teams like Tennessee. The closest game to a Tennessee-style team, I guess, that Kentucky's had was Mississippi State. Kentucky put up 90 points and won that one 90-77 in Rupp Arena. Guys, is that maybe a harbinger of things to come here, Max?
I mean, well, if you look at that Kentucky Mississippi State game, I don't think that it's going to go along the lines of how this one went. You have Kentucky going 23 of 31 from 2-point range, shooting just under 75%. I would be shocked if this Kentucky team allowed that. And plus, was that game the Big Z game for Kentucky, or was it after that?
It was a Georgia game.
It was after that.
Georgia game. Yeah, but still, I mean, stuff like that's going to happen. If they played again, is Kentucky putting up 90 on Mississippi State? I would doubt it. But still, that's what we have to understand, that they are capable of just exploding offensively. We've said that time and time again this year. But I also had DJ Wagner in that game. So I'm not sure how that shakes out. I really think that that's just a major piece of this game is Wagner, especially because of his guard defense. But also another thing that I wanted to bring up was a weakness of this Tennessee team, as good as their defense has been. When they play a big or a team that has multiple bigs, back to the basket, can really bang and get down low and draw some fouls and fight for some offensive rebounds. We've seen Adu and Awaka get into bad foul trouble multiple times this year, and that's really affected Tennessee. I don't really think that this is a Kentucky style offense that's going to, draw that out of Tennessee, like a Tolu Smith does, like a Edey does, and the other teams that Tennessee kind of faltered against. So I think that's another area, just kind of matchup wise. I think that kind of plays into the Tennessee defense a little bit.
Blake?
I'm waiting for picks.
Let's go.
Okay, let's get to picks. All right. I'm looking at Kentucky's last X amount of home games. Last one out, 91 points at home. Home game before that, 105 against Georgia. The one before that, 90 against Mississippi State. Going back further, 90 against Missouri, 96 against Illinois State. And then we have to go back to 73 against UNC Wilmington on December 2nd. That was the game that Kentucky lost, if we're going to go way below that. Look, you guys know my knocks on Kentucky. It's inconsistent. The defensive issues have been there, as we have talked about. But those scoring outputs at home, combined with the last 2 times we've seen these 2 teams play in Rupp, I don't feel great about the pick. I still think Tennessee, to me, somebody asked me on a radio show this morning, who are you picking to go the furthest in the NCAA tournament? I said it's Tennessee. I think that's still my answer. I still think that's my answer after this weekend, whatever happens. But as one of you said in another video, it's not so much about the teams and who's better. It's about the spot that they're in. And this spot and all those circumstances seem to me to favor Kentucky a little bit more. Max, you're up.
Man, I am so glad that you picked Kentucky, because that just I didn't have a clue where I'm going with this, but now I'm all good.
Thanks a lot.
It's crazy how much the jinx plays a factor into these picks. I do think that the spot is very important. And actually, this morning before we got on video, I rewatched Rick Barnes's post-game press conference, and the things that he was really upset with, it wasn't necessarily the defense. He said, hey, you got to credit South Carolina. We held them under 70 points, which is our goal, but they just made big shot after big shot after big shot when they needed it. And Barnes was more so upset with the amount of missed layups, the lack of focus on rebounding and boxing out and controllable stuff. So I think both teams coming off of a loss, they're both going to be playing out of their mind. They know how big of a game this is. Both of these teams have fifth-year seniors. Kentucky's got Reeves and Mitchell, and Tennessee's all old. So I think both teams neither team is going to, not be ready for this stage. I just think the matchup and how it shakes out without DJ Wagner, star on that, without DJ Wagner, I'm going to pick Tennessee here. But if Kentucky's fully healthy, then I'll use that as an excuse for this pick. But I'm going Tennessee.
I hate it when you two make it hard on me now.
Let's go.
Now, I don't have the luxury of just going against what you picked. Now you both pick different teams, and so it puts me in a spot where I don't know what to do.
Good job, Chris.
I was going to use the same excuse as Max and say, I'm going to pick Kentucky if DJ Wagner plays. I'm going to pick Tennessee if DJ Wagner doesn't play. That was my whole setup.
Took it right.
I'd still like to use that, by the way, because it is a significant part of the game. We laugh, but it's a significant part of this game, given the fact that Tennessee defends the way they defend. They didn't lose against South Carolina because of their defense. And think about the last time Tennessee played a great offensive team, an elite offensive team. What happened?
Talking about Alabama?
Blew their doors off.
Yeah,
that's true.
And they did the same to Florida. They did it to two teams, I think, offensively that can rival Kentucky. They did it to both of them and just completely shut them down. Now, the difference is what? Those games were played in the Food City Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. They weren't played in Rupp Arena. So it's hard. Which one do you weigh there? Which one means the most? And that's why I think the Wagner thing is so important, because if he doesn't play, I know Kentucky just scored 91 points against Florida. But Florida's not a great defensive team. Tennessee is a great defensive team. And there have not been many games this season where Tennessee has struggled defensively, other than the North Carolina game. That's about it. You could say they struggled with Mississippi State. They gave up 77, but that's not bad. I mean, even in other games they lost, Purdue, Kansas, they weren't terrible on defense. That's not their issue. So also knowing that Kentucky struggled against South Carolina, who I'll keep going back to, I think has adopted some Tennessee tendencies. It's a tough spot for Kentucky if DJ Wagner does not play.
Yeah.
If he does play, I think I can see Kentucky in a spot where their offense gets flowing again. They're able to find, some of those things and, it'd be okay. But he's an important part of this thing. And it's it's really hard to feel like we can make an accurate pick without knowing if he plays. So I think you kind of have to do the hedge on this one, because we're not talking about just some role player who's going to step in and play 10 minutes. We're talking about a guy who played 35 minutes the last game he played, 30, 29, 26, 31, 30, 36, down the line. One of their top minutes guys. So against one of the best defensive teams in the country, that's a huge dynamic here. So I'm gonna stick with that. If DJ Wagner plays, I'll take Kentucky. If he doesn't, I'll take Tennessee. I think it's fair to do it that way for this game.
Oh,
So,
no.
Chris,
tried
it's
to change my
basketball.
pick and
There are 5
hedge.
players on the floor. If you take out one who plays,
He didn't play last game.
And they lost.
Well, that's
and
true.
they lost. What is your point? That's the exact point I'm making.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Boom.
we should think before
Mic
we
drop.
speak.
Goodness gracious. Take the mic off and drop it right now.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Come on,
delete
folks.
that, please.
Come on. There's no chance we're deleting that. Not a single chance.
No way.
My point was going to be that you should know what it would look like, but that sort of
I
proves
do.
yourself.
That's why I'm telling you that if he plays, I'm picking Kentucky. If he doesn't play, I'm picking Tennessee. That's my whole point. So we're not Vegas here. We're not setting the lines. Like our picks are ultimately for fun here. Like they don't really matter. So please don't take these too seriously, everyone. We've been called Tennessee homers, Kentucky homers. We're homers for everybody these days.
We are.
So I mean, yeah, like it's a huge part of this matchup. But like I said, this is. You said that Tennessee had gotten their doors blown off in Kentucky the last couple times. I know you're thinking of the 2022 game where they lost 107-79. But really, other than that, I mean, they lost 66-54 last year. So again, that maybe worry you a little bit if you're like Tennessee going to come out and score 54 points in this game. The year before against Kentucky, they lost 63-56 in Knoxville. But Tennessee's had some wins in Lexington, over the past several years. I mean, they won back-to-back games there, 20 and 21. So it's hard to read into that too much, but yeah, I think it's an interesting spot for both teams now that they're coming off losses. And man, I remember the South Carolina game for Kentucky, and if Tennessee does anything similar and it's that physical, I want to see Kentucky respond to that here, because the Florida game was physical to an extent, but it wasn't the South Carolina game, right? It's completely different because of the way South Carolina has defended and the way Florida defends. So, yeah, love the matchup here. Love it.
Yeah.
This is making up to be a heart and soul game, a classic heart and soul game. I know Blake loves those.
Max is going to be exhausted by the end of this game. Max is going to be just spent. Going to be sweat dripping down the shirt.
I've got practice in a few minutes, so we've got to wrap this up. But
you got to hydrate.
Yeah,
I got a mailbag to do. That's what we got.
I've got practice for this game.
Sponsored by Gatorade.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening to our stupidity at times. I'm Chris Lee. He's Blake Lovell, Max Barr. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Badline. By the way, previewing all the SEC games this week. There are other videos where we talk about these. Mailbag coming shortly. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you again soon.